back to interpreting the scars! That's right. We're back at it on a month-long journey through the nightmares with the second, count it, second specialty review of the month. So remember, this is a part of the main event of Interpreting the Scares. It's just basically just the new releases that come out during the month that are indeed horror. There won't be many of these specials, so, you know, count your blessings, I guess. But what I can tell you is that out of every movie that was coming out in 2022, this was a little bit more highly anticipated, because if you've been watching my channel since at least last year when I did Interpreting the Scares, that month I did look at every single Hellraiser film. So, you know, it's cool to see yet another one. This is the new 2022 film that came out on Hulu. It's Hellraiser. A young woman struggling with addiction comes into possession of an ancient puzzle box, unaware that its purpose is to summon the Cenobites, a group of sadistic supernatural beings from another dimension. And when her brother gets caught into the mix, she has to devise some sort of plan to get him back, all while trying to avoid all these Cenobite thingy-majigs. First of all, did I enjoy this movie? I did. You know, when it comes down to all of my experience with the Hellraiser films last year, I think it fits right in, especially when it comes down to those simpler Hellraiser films that started the franchise off to begin with. Movies that had more Pinhead in them, movies that had more of a darker message, movies that felt like Hellraiser. I mean, a lot of the later films in the series didn't feel so much like Hellraiser should feel. It just weirdly had Pinhead in them, and so they just kind of called those movies Hellraiser, but they didn't feel like at least the first three Hellraiser films, and this did, thankfully. Jamie Clayton is the new Pinhead, and she does a terrific job. I know that there is some controversy surrounding the fact that it's a girl playing Pinhead and everything, but as far as I know, the source material of Hellraiser, the original book, it was a feminine androgynous being, creature, demon, whatever the heck you call Pinhead. And that's exactly what Jamie Clayton is in this film, and she does a terrific job. She really, really does. She's hamming it up. I would say that there's more than one scene in this film that it's creepy. Like, it is dark, it's demented, it's scary. I love that it's kind of its own thing, even though the story at hand isn't super original, you know what I mean? It was like something that, it feels familiar. Like, it's almost like you have seen the movie before, but you haven't. The nice thing about it, though, is how they approach the configurations of that puzzle box that Hellraiser is known for. In the original movies, there's a lot of focus on that puzzle box, but it's almost always in the lament configuration, almost always. Here and there, they have changed it in the original series, but it's not focused on very much. It's almost like they didn't want to really dive deep into what makes that puzzle box so unique and what you have to do to change it up. It's almost like it's a genie bottle in the original series, because they'll just be holding it and then they'll be rubbing it a little bit and then it'll do whatever it does. And even when I watched it last year, I'm like, it seems kind of touchy. Doesn't seem like there's any specific thing that they're doing except rubbing it a little bit and it opens up. This, they're actually doing things. It actually feels like a real puzzle box. It actually feels like they are physically changing this thing in real life, and maybe they are, I don't know. And I love how they broke down each configuration of the box and what each one represents and what each one means to the film as a whole and what might happen if they do it and all these different things. Like, it's a process. And I love that because it fits right in to a narrative going somewhere specific, and I love that. I think it also opens up the possibility of the film becoming a series, becoming a franchise, having more sequels in its own universe. But I also really, really appreciated kind of the hidden messages that were going on in the film in terms of this main girl, the main character's addiction that she's battling, because I know from the original series that addiction is pretty big when it comes down to what Hellraiser is all about and how it's all about torment and torture, but also pleasure at the same time. Kind of like the BDSM thing, but like times a billion, of course. So because our main character has addiction, I knew that was going to come into play. And it does. But honestly, the way that it does, I wasn't really expecting. I actually kind of dug what they did with that. I won't divulge too much about that specifically because that would just be too much into the spoiler territory. And hey, it doesn't even really explain that much to you anyway. You just kind of have to be paying attention. I guess one of the bigger questions I have is, does it beat the original series at all? I would certainly say it beat a lot of the later films in the series. But the original trilogy with Hellraiser, I really enjoy. Maybe even the fourth, I'm not sure, but like there's a classicness to them, especially with a classic actor who played Pinhead and a lot of his one-liners that I still remember to this day and still quote. I think that they are phenomenal in terms of horror. I think that if you get into those types of movies, I could see it becoming kind of a cult classic for lots and lots of people. I don't think that this reboot quite matched that level. I think it got close though, because it still feels like it fits with those other movies. And I think that the visuals are just as good because they are still doing practical effects stuff, which is the best thing that they could do, because Hellraiser was often known to be very, very strong when it came down to practical effects. Same goes here. Costume design of the Cenobites, perfect. Obviously, some of the Cenobites are representative of what came before it in the original series. Obviously, they are based off of stuff that was seen in the books, but they also felt different too. They felt like their own thing as well, because Cenobites, it's like an entire species. I'm Sean Connery. Species! And there's just like an infinite amount of Cenobites that you could potentially see. There's a lot of creativity behind what they look like, what they do, what they're all about. And I think as far as this movie is concerned, we've only seen the tip of the iceberg. I think in general, it was a very, very strong film. I think it fits the Hellraiser name. I think it has a lot of imagery that's great. I think it has a great narrative. In fact, it might actually have the best narrative of any of the Hellraiser films, period, except for maybe the first one. I really do like the narrative of the first film. I'm looking forward to seeing if they actually do branch out and make more films. What I saw, I was impressed with, especially the performances. It might have the best acting out of any of the original series because that was pretty tacky, you know, B-horror movie acting stuff. And this actually had some pretty down-to-earth, relatable acting that I thought was overall pretty strong. It's a great addition to the Halloween season. It's an even better addition to the Hellraiser series that already has existed for many, many decades. And I personally don't have a ton of negatives to say about it, other than maybe it made some safe decisions. Let's go ahead and take a look at my final score for Hellraiser 2022, which I rated a B+ letter grade final overall score of 83%. 83 out of 100 possible stars. You can see from my unbiased and biased score that those basically agree with the overall score because in general, it's as entertaining as it is well made. I think they did a great job overall. I think as far as horror films are concerned, they actually went the extra step and tried to do stuff that other film production companies aren't doing right now, and they paid homage to a lot of the glory days of horror's past. If you're not a fan of the Hellraiser series, you're probably not gonna like it regardless, so keep that in mind. And guys, please let me know what you thought about this Hellraiser reboot in the comment section down below. Do you think it paid respectful homage to the original series? Do you think it's better? Do you think it's worse? Please let me know, and as for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit the like, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell to be notified when I come out with my next horror film review. And until then, peace out.